Hi, guys.
Hello, friends.
Ah,
The party of five has turned into a party of three.
That's
yeah.
all right. We've got good energy. We're going to learn lots and share great things today.
We do. Jess is going to lead the show today because she's the good student that did all of the reading. I read my section and I listened to Gary on my Audible. It's how I start my day every day. So, all right. So why don't we?
My section. I made a commitment, Jenny.
Yes.
Read the whole thing, even if it was
This is
the
one of
last
those,
few pages at the end.
this is one of those
So-
books, Jenny, you don't get to do it via Audible. This is like,
No, I read it too, and I'm listening while I'm getting ready.
because when you're doing Audible, you don't get any of the graphs, none of the charts.
No, that's why I went back and reviewed them all, and I was like, wow, this is amazing, and I love it. Okay, forget. It's not about me. Okay. All right, so everybody introduce yourself real quick, and we'll jump in.
I'm Jess Starr with KW in Connecticut. We cover a huge territory in Connecticut and parts of lower Massachusetts too. I own a 4-family and a single-family home and have an intention to build wealth through real estate. And by the time we're done with this book club, I will hopefully have an offer on 1, maybe 2 investment properties.
Awesome. Love that. Go ahead.
Josh Anderson, still. Do I need to do more than that? I own investment properties, mostly multifamily. It hasn't changed
What
since-
about 70?
Yeah, about 70 doors, not 70 individual properties.
Right.
So 3 apartment complexes and some duplex, triplex, quadplex.
I'm Jenny from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so I'm just loving the awareness that this is really causing. You know, I mean, for one, it's brought about just since we've started this, so many thoughts of mine through reading this and learning and sharing with you guys is that, so we have this lake house, and it's been kind of a part of my story is that through Bold, I envisioned having a lake house. We have this cute little cottage at the lake, and it's in a community that can't have VRBOs. They can't rent it out. And I'm sitting here realizing that although we escape and go there every now and then, I didn't go one time this whole summer. And it has lots of equity sitting there. And I've been like trapped in my investment goals because of, you know, this piece. And so it's been so freeing because of this, right? It's all awareness and clarity. So thank you guys for being a part of that. So Jess, you broke up the chapters for us, and you also start us off, and you also get Tony and Tim sections as well.
And tell everybody why I get Tony and Tim sections, Jenny.
Because you're the good student that read everything. That's why.
I didn't just read my section. I read the whole section, like the commitment we made.
Yeah.
So the big thing I would say is the awareness. So you said you had awareness around it. I think you should talk a little bit about that. So what was that awareness that brought to you? What change would you make because of that? Or you just realize that you have this, and then what does that do for you?
Now, I mean, this is just my personal situation, because if you and your family are at a place where you can have a non-income producing property sitting there, then that's totally your gig, and that's awesome and amazing. And for us, that just wasn't where we are right now. And I'd rather use that money to put toward other things to be building our wealth now. So that's what it was for me. It's had its time. We've had great memories, and, you know, for sure can see future, you know, going back and doing that again. I just want to be able to have income when I'm not there.
So are you planning on putting it on the market?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not in the world yet. So yes.
Okay. Well, I was sorry if that was
Really awkward
I
answer.
felt like something was left to be.
Yeah, just conversations with
That look better, Kyle?
neighbors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did
What?
Kyle say you're looking bad?
He said that this is a paper towel roll behind me, and it's not. It's actually to put all kinds of awesome notes.
I like that thing. Or to
Yeah.
wrap meat.
I'll send you one. I'll send you one too, Kyle, but it'll be paper towels.
It's where Josh wraps meat. It's fine.
So I think we started at page 120, 123-ish, Jess. We would buy $1 million.
Yep.
Okay.
You know, I think learning the path of money, managing your personal budget, and tracking your personal net worth. What these sections did for me was I actually had set up an appointment afterwards reading this, which I had, intended to anyways with my financial planner, just to reassess the net worth that we have and see where we were at, both with our investments, with our, retirement and everything like that, and also build a plan around investing further. Because I'm not, as we read through these chapters, I'm not the investor that loves to carry a ton of debt. And part of that reason is I tend to be a little risk averse. And, after having a husband that had a traumatic accident, I tend to be more risk averse that way. So I'd rather, if I can, pay things off and live as debt free as possible. So knowing my net worth is really great for that reason. And I loved when I read in some of these sections that some of these investors, it may not be the wisest and it may not be what a lot of people do, but they would buy the property and until it was paid in full, they wouldn't buy the next property, but they would use the income from those properties to pay them off.
Yeah,
I thought that was great.
one of the things I would say is I think we're conditioned as humans as we're growing up that debt is not a good thing. And that's fine. And I thought that for a long time, but I also feel like there's definitely good and bad debt. And I also think that there is, credit card debt is no good. But I think you've got people like Dave Ramsey. Fortune off of, Finance 101 and the basics, and that's great. But I think he teaches people more how to get out of debt than how to build wealth.
Absolutely.
And there's a huge difference. And what I've realized over time is you can buy as many properties as you want as long as you have a good relationship with your bank or banks. And having debt is okay. Like there's a lot of investors that have the mindset, don't ever pay off any of your properties. Never have more than 25 to 50% equity in them, because continue to use that equity as a bank.
Right.
Pull that equity out, refinance. And as long as you bought it right on the front end, and that's what a big piece of this whole thing that I've read up until page 50, it's like, it's just doing exactly what we've been doing in our regular traditional real estate business of come up with a database, talk to it, add value to it, find your referral sources, find your advocates, and we can obviously go more in depth on all that, but it's the exact same thing that we do every day to find buyers and sellers.
Yeah. Well, but I think the big part about this was, to each his own, right? So if you're somebody that doesn't like holding debt, if you're somebody that likes, being able to finance and I've had people talk about me. I have this opportunity to buy a place right now. And does it make more sense for me? I have the cash that I could buy it in full, which is something I'm considering. And yet, does it make more sense to finance if I can get a rate of 3 point whatever? Does it make more sense to finance that $50,000 and put 50,000 down or whatever, and then take that and then reinvest it into the stock market where I can make 18% or 20% because I'm making more for my money there? Probably, right? And yet, when you think of some of the reasons why I might want to pay it off, well, if something ever happened to me, I need to make sure my husband can afford it, or I need to make sure, and his job, unfortunately, doesn't bring in the kind of income my position can. So we look at it on both sides and say, okay, which way do we want to weigh the risk? So, and at some point, I guess it's where do you feel most comfortable doing it? And I think the more we get and the more doors we get, and you've done this for 3 or 4 years that you started getting a lot of doors, you said, right?
Yep.
And how did you get over that? That's probably a good thing to talk about mindset wise too.
I think the first 5 to 7 years in the business, I was so busy reinvesting all my dollars back into my real estate business that I definitely have looked back and said, dang, there were some properties that I brought to clients.
Yep.
And they were appreciative and thankful that I brought those to them. But, in the last 5 years of being in the business, I've really kind of looked at it and said, I'm always a buyer first. And I think we get really busy in the business and in the transaction that we look up after the transaction. We're like, shit, our client just made 6 figures and we could have easily done that. Like, even if you don't have the money to do it, finding the deal is the hard part. Finding investors right now to split the deal with you is easy.
Right.
And that doesn't matter if you're flipping, buying and holding, assigning a contract, whatever it is.
Right.
So I just got more purposeful because I think as agents, we can find deals because we're having more conversations than the average person.
Right.
But with all those deals that I've found, I really haven't been purposeful. They've all kind of fallen in my lap. And so 2020 is like, it's about to go down. Like I'm getting serious on systems and processes for building this out.
I actually feel that energy coming too.
Yeah.
For some reason, that's like, I can feel the fire in my belly. And every time I sit down with my husband now, that's all I'm bringing up. He's like, you're like a broken record. I'm like, I know.
When you talk about it more,
Yeah. Awareness.
Yeah. And it's now when I'm seeing these things for the investors, I'm now thinking, maybe it's something I should be doing first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, the big thing too was really knowing the path to money. How many of us, have our jobs? And I'm talking to the new agents, the people just starting their teams, even people with seasoned teams. There's people, and I know Gary was talking about it. There's people that are in the top 100 that their profit is very low. And, when you look at what their actual profit is, it's great to sell 1,000 homes. It's great to sell whatever, but when your profit is so incredibly low, I guess the total number of units help and your volume helps, but you want to know where your dollars and cents are going. And I think just knowing the path to money from the millionaire real estate agent to this, to profit first, they all seem to tie together. So I think it was kind of exciting to me to rehear this again.
Well, and to think big into this MREI is that now you can tag that money, that's your profit from your real estate business for, $50,000 for this down payment of this property. Now you have that brain, because otherwise, if you're just like, I just need to pay off all the bills that we have to run this real estate business, and you have no greater goals or visions for where that money will go, it won't appear.
Right.
Yeah, I think page 120.
Let their money wander wherever it wants to go, and millionaires don't. They direct their money to the places that will bring them the greatest financial growth and the most substantial net worth.
Yeah. I think we should all probably take page 129 and print out the path of money and look at it every day. One of the things I highlighted on 129 was, and I think we did this, but there are only two ways to get money. You can earn it and you can receive it. And I think it's just,
I know that too.
You can't work forever and make the same amount of money. So and I think there's a lot of people that, thought little things like Social Security or something like that would take care of you when you retire. And that might have been okay 50 years ago, or at least helped. No bueno now.
Well, and having your job will make you money, and your passive income can make you wealthy. Getting that kind of beaten into our heads over and over in these chapters was great. We hear it all the time, but I thought about it and I said, you know what? My profit share just goes and gets dumped into my bank account. I'm now going to dump the profit share into a separate account, and that's going to be the account that we use to go invest in properties. So,
there you go. I like that.
So that was the other thing we did this week besides the Financial Planner Net Worth.
So this is actually a page from QL for young adults.
Oh.
So the back section of the class that we teach for QL, young adults, and if anyone's watching and would like to get involved, let me know. We have QL Day coming up. Okay. And so remember, we talked about this last session on as kids, we're not taught this way to think about money. Well, Gary is ensuring that our youth are going to start talking about it. And it's great to teach it, because then we also get to learn better as well. So you guys know that is shared inside of that QL class. Does it matter?
Make a copy of that for us.
Yes, sir. Of course. PDF coming your way. Let me just share while I'm on that is, as I was going through the section, I read the lead generation model. There's all these models and printouts that are clearly important. And so I just went to KW Connect and searched for courses and found MREI/hold workshop. So there's a class that you could find all the content, and you could teach this in your market center in your office for your database. And there were some handouts that were attached. So I can share those as well. Things like a criteria worksheet. So you just always have a printout of what you're looking for and if it matches up.
can you just put links in the Facebook group?
Oh, I will.
And brand them to us and send them to
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll do that.
Sounds great.
So, all right. Well, was that kind of your first part there, Jess? And what else?
What was that too?
I mean, like literally, there's so much more that's in here, but honestly, there's plenty that we can share. So,
I liked on page 135 I think we've probably heard this all. I think this is all basic stuff, but it's just seeing it over and over. 135, investors take the concept a step further, talking about how a consumer sees their budget versus how a millionaire sees their budget. And they pay themselves first, second, and last. They set aside money to invest before taxes, after taxes, and after all spending. So I did that several years ago. I've got several different bank accounts for different rental properties and things. 25% of every one of my commission checks goes into an account. It's my investment account. And then I decide what to do with that money each quarter, each year, whatever it is.
let me ask this, Josh. Can you share, so 25% of your commission checks, solely your listing commission checks or your buyer commission checks or your teams, or how do you
every check that runs through the Anderson Group that I get in any capacity, 25% of it goes into that investment account, and any overflow from tax accounts, any overflow from my rental accounts, all goes in there each quarter and each year when I'm talking with my CPA and my just different people, that bookkeeper, everybody. So the reason I did that was because I wanted it to be more than putting 10% aside, because I don't think that's enough or anywhere close to me being able to hit my goals. But and then I put 40% in for taxes. And so at the end of the last couple of years, we've had excess in those accounts. And so I take all that money, put it in the investment account. So we're constantly shifting money based on talking to our CPA and figuring those things out.
Smart.
And then anything that I get, like all the money that I get from profit share goes into my investment account. We overpaid on something for on our health insurance stuff. That was just like a $900 check. That goes into my investment account. Like anything that's overflow that comes back to us goes into the investment account, because obviously we didn't need it and it's overflow. So let's go invest that somewhere else. So
I like that.
yeah.
This is another thought too. We just moved because I hadn't done it. I just had it in a normal account. Our capital account for the team, I just had a normal bank account. So I just moved it into an investment account that basically our financial planner has. It'll take a day or two to move over, but since it's a substantial amount, it made more sense to actually make more money on it instead of just sitting on it like it's in my mattress. So,
and so that's what our investment accounts are. They're more like money market accounts, or we're even looking at like doing some of these investor banks and life insurance, and we can get into that later, but it's just like using things as a bank. So.
Yep. That's what we
do.
Yep.
So my whole section was the lead generation model. And that was really, Josh touched on this already. It's just the aha that it's exactly, so I'm like around page 171, the lead generation model. So it's just exactly like if you are a student of Millionaire Real Estate Agent, it's the same conversations, the same models, the same thinking and mindset around running a database business. So this is just another form of your business inside your business to me. Those were my ahas. Like I wrote down that we are if you listen to this on Audible, you would hear.
Josh and I have the same face at you, actually. That's hilarious.
I read it too. And it sticks more in my brain because I could hear the words that were being spoken, is that the biggest category for his teachings, and this book wasn't written for real estate agents necessarily, it was written for investors. And he says that the biggest category of where you're going to find your best opportunities for investments come from real estate agents. So I had these thoughts this morning as I'm, curling my hair and putting on my makeup. I'm thinking, remember those years of, this is all in my brain. remember those years when the market was so crazy good, you guys were in it, and how many investors called you daily? You'd get super annoyed because you're like, if I found that deal, I would buy it,
Happening right now in Nashville. Yeah.
Perfect. And just remember that. And I remember thinking, go find your own agent that's going to be out there looking. Well, actually, they were just lead generating. They were looking for agents, multiple agents. You remember having these qualifying conversations with them? They'd call you and you'd say, oh, are you just starting your search? And they'd say, no, I'm an investor. I'm always looking for a deal. And you'd be super annoyed, roll your eyes, and probably hang up on them. They were just, did you not ever?
I never hung up on them. I took their info and I made them my client for life.
Well, okay. Yeah. You're better than me, Josh.
In that aspect, maybe.
No, I'm kidding. This was like forever ago, and I'm just having these memories of how at least you would think. Of course, you would take their information. You'd be the best agent you could be.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying they were doing what they should be doing. They were lead generating, looking for real estate agents to help them out. Right. So the other piece that I wrote down was that it's about, Jess, really, you're commenting while we're Zooming?
They needed interaction.
Was just understanding our criteria and what we're always looking for. Like I said, there was that criteria worksheet. Really, the model on page 172 is just written out. Like, what are you looking for? Who's going to help you find it? How are you going to lead generate to attract it? So either prospecting, calling people, letting them know what you're looking for, or you're going to market. Maybe you're a We Buy Ugly Houses type branding, or some way to attract people. It's so funny, when this book was written, obviously the internet and email and all of that wasn't in place, and because it's all the flyers and the postcards that you could send. And then qualifying all suspects and only focusing on prospects. So
I thought when I heard this too, I was thinking about the We Buy Ugly Houses, and then it reminded me of how they said your all properties bulletin, your APB. And I thought, geez, because I'm always thinking of marketing, especially. And I was like, Facebook is so easy in social media. You could do a targeted boosted ad on Facebook. Like, you guys should probably write this down. Create your all properties bulletin, right? You could literally target who you wanted it to hit. You could hit the demographic area. Mm-hmm. You could hit, hey, do 3 or 4 of them with different ways for calls to action. You always have to do, email us, click here, call us. If you do a pay-per-click, it's going to cost you more money. So if you're smart, you say call us, right? Because it's not going to cost you. Or you say email us here, but you put down what you're looking for in that boosted targeted ad, right? And you can use the dark pages in your all properties bulletin. You can make it just like the banner ad that people do, We Buy Ugly Houses. People will see it. They're going to know, hey, you know what? My sister's underwater on her house. They need to sell this duplex, this whatever. And you can do your banner ad there in all the social media. So to me, I'm like, might be something I'm going to need to start, because there's a lot of people, in our area that are going to need to do that soon. Yeah. And I think you could pick up some really great properties, and if not, get a bunch of leads for great listings, connect your investors to them. But it's just a different way to think and to market. And it's passive, but your marketing, what I loved about these sections was, they described how your prospecting is, you're constantly doing it and you're working to get that lead in, right? Lead generating, but your marketing is constantly working for you. So if you're marketing right, it's doing the heavy lifting for you.
The other thing that I had as an aha was, just like in our real estate business, when you do not consistently lead generate, you accept any human that comes your way that needs to buy or sell, regardless of how they treat you or the quality of the relationship. And the same is absolutely true for investing. If you're not consistently looking, not always buying, talking about how you're a buyer and you're looking to invest, it's the same thing. If you became really desperate, you're like, I've got this money to spend, I need to do it within a certain amount of time, then you could settle for a not great investment.
Yeah. It's huge. I think with the, going back to his meetings that he'd have with his friend Michael, every time, and I think just as friends, we should say this to each other, like every time they'd meet and he'd keep his balance sheet with him, he'd show it every week at their breakfast. And then Michael would say, now how can we make that grow? And he'd always keep a copy of his personal balance sheet with him. And, it might not change every week. Like for the average person, that might not change every week. But having somebody say, how can we make that grow? And having you thinking, being held accountable to that is like, oh God, yeah, you know what, you're right. Or like, it's just like with losing weight or sticking to the gym and sticking to running. Like, hey, Jess, you committed to being at the gym at 5 a.m. I noticed you didn't post on Facebook that you were there at 5 a.m. Like, yeah, why are you letting your waistline grow? So, just saying.
Yeah, I love it. Well, and then lastly, on page 196 is that same old circle that we see in our real estate business where we've got our haven't met and we work down. So I would also say a project to think about over the next couple of weeks is who would be your core advocates, your raving fans for this segment of business as well, not just helping buyers and sellers, also investing.
Mm-hmm.
What pages was I supposed to read? I thought it was supposed to be starting at 191, and you're talking about page 196, so I'm confused.
Your section is 197, so you're up. There you go.
Oh, I thought it was 191. All right.
121.
Go back to 191.
So you didn't read it either.
Yeah, no, I did. Look, I've got all this stuff highlighted.
Am I the only one? Come on.
Oh, I read. I've got all kinds of stuff. I didn't know that. Gosh, I thought I was only question 2.
Move along.
Yeah. So it's kind of a lot more of the same stuff that you guys just mentioned. Just as far as like, one of the questions you just asked about core advocates, for me, I think at least my experience has been like one of the places that I've gotten good, at least for flips, has been probate attorneys.
Yeah.
And, I think you can find people anywhere and everywhere. I think it's just getting dialed into, are you going to buy a list and build that list out, emails, phone numbers on top of the addresses? Or do you want to just go drive an area and build your own list of the crappiest houses in the best neighborhoods or areas that you think are going to transition the most? So I think there's a lot of different ways, just like traditional real estate. I think there's tons of ways to do this. And I think they've given lots of good, so like how millionaire real estate investors find opportunity, 32%, and I bet this number has dramatically changed, but 32% has just been from networking and talking to people. The other piece was 28% from real estate agents. So that number is about 60%. And we as real estate agents network, and we're real estate agents. So like 60%, like we should be able to do a lot of this between us and our teams. Right. I've told everybody on my team, for example, like I'll let them get paid a full commission if they bring me a deal first. So I'm always an investor. I'm always willing to do a deal with them. I've told every agent in our Keller Williams Green Hills office, and I post it on our internal Facebook pages, that I'm always looking for, and I have my criteria, and so I just tell them, you guys can represent me all day long.
Why not post that APP in your, if you have like a KW Nashville office page or group, why not post that in there so everybody can see it?
Well, that's what I was just saying. I do.
Oh, good.
I post in our KW Green Hills page. I post in our, we've got a couple of like Nashville pages that have tons of different agents. And I just tell all of them, here's what I'm looking for. And here's what I'm happy to let you represent me, because I'm not going to find all the deals. For people that are established, they've got investors they're going to bring deals to, but there's a lot of new agents that randomly run across things. And so I want those people to, if they need to do a deal, the 3% isn't going to matter for me commission wise, because I'm going to make the numbers make sense regardless of that 3%, or I'm not going to do the deal. And so that was one of the things that I know we talked about last time. I think that you really have to get dialed in on your criteria. And that's one of the things that I highlighted several times in here, is know exactly what your criteria is and sit on the sidelines until you know what that criteria is. Otherwise, you're going to be kind of you're really just a buyer or a speculator or something along those lines. Because every time I've had a client or myself that hasn't followed my investment criteria formula, it's never ended up being a good deal. Like every single time, it's just been okay. So
what's the criteria?
ooh. So I think for everybody, it's a little bit different. For me, I keep it pretty easy on like the 1% rule. And if it does not hit that 1% rule, like it's just not a conversation. Or if I'm looking at it and I can't do something different with the property than what it is. So my little bit, but generically, it's got to pass the 1% rule always. And I think we talked about that last time. So and some people do cap rate, some people do that 1%. Some people don't necessarily need as much cash flow and want appreciation, so they buy it on an area that's just right on the edge of a really great area that just hasn't turned yet. So I'm not saying my formula is right. I'm just saying figure out what your formula is. And I would say don't buy anything until you figure that out.
Well, they say in here always to start out small and then upgrade. And sometimes somebody might say the investment is a single family home, or it might be a multi-unit. It might be two, live in one side, buy it as a first time home, and rent out the other side so they can pay it off. Whatever it may be, when you find out that criteria, you just need to create the action plan and get into action, I think is the biggest thing. From reading books like this, we can read them all day long, but if we do nothing about it, then what's the point? That's my big thing.
Yeah, so one of my criteria has always been that I'm basically buying multifamily. And my thought on multifamily is that I could have it, if it's a duplex, I could have it rented on one side and keep the other side vacant and still basically be paying the mortgage. I might not be making money. So I've kind of always felt like that's important for me. And I like duplexes because they don't typically appreciate as well as a single family, but they do cash flow better. And for me, I've always kind of felt like there's no guarantee of appreciation anyway. So I'm all about cash flow.
Yeah.
Because I'm taking that cash flow and reinvesting it constantly.
Here's I'm going to add in this that I didn't share, but I think it's important. It's the 5 laws of lead generation. Never compromise. Be a shopper, not a buyer. Timing matters. It's a numbers game. Be organized and systematic.
I can't believe you didn't mention that earlier.
No. I actually wrote it down on a sticky note and I was going to use it.
Actually later, that was actually part of my section that I'm going to go over in just a minute, but thanks for going.
Oh, good, because you went over mine earlier, so that's great.
Just teeing up.
Yeah. Oh, hi.
Wow.
How do
That
you
was impressive.
How do you have that not happen?
Okay, so Jess, you kind of mentioned earlier, like the marketing is the opposite of prospecting, and instead of seeking opportunities, marketing is about attracting. And so I just highlighted lots of little one-off sentences that I feel like, lead generate for both properties that meet the criteria and sellers who are motivated to sell. So, and I think that's a big piece of it. Like, I'm not attached to any particular property. I'm attached to the idea of wanting to find sellers that are motivated to sell that I can buy where the numbers make sense.
Right.
I had another thought on this that ties in with, kind of the way I know we've done some proactive marketing with our buyer clients, having a buyer listing and sharing them as the listing and promoting them as a buyer. This is the same thing that we're doing. We're just creating this as another avenue to attract people to know all the different areas that we're available to help. Because if somebody came to you guys right now and you weren't the buyer for it, I bet you could find a buyer for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, now since reading this book, I'm now like, now I'm looking at everything. Like, I need to buy this one. I need to buy this one.
Right. And so Josh can hold us accountable with the criteria that we're following the right steps and rules.
Yeah.
I have one that looks so good that I literally am like, I'm trying to find the holes where it doesn't look good, so I don't buy it, and there aren't any. So
then buy it.
Inspection might
show. What are you waiting on?
Because I want to pay cash, and I have my other people tell me, nah, finance. So I need you to talk me out of the just paying cash part.
I think it's dumb to pay cash.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk me out of
Like, there's nothing wrong with it, except for the fact that it ties you down to that one property and you're not able to go buy. What happens if an even better deal comes along a month from now?
that. That doesn't mean I can't go buy it, Josh.
At some point, you can't keep buying it if you use all your cash to buy it, the previous one.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, you might be able to find an investor to be a buyer with you on that.
Right.
But do you want an investor to be a buyer with you on that particular property?
Yeah, and I'm thinking
Me,
probably
I don't want partners on anything more than that. I mean, unless it's a deal that I can't take down myself, I don't want investors.
right.
Yeah. So 206, one of the things that I think we know to do, because we do it in traditional real estate, at the bottom, it's the lesson: tell everyone you know or meet, because a tremendous opportunity could be right under your nose. I think we're so busy telling people that we're real estate agents that we don't tell them that we're investors. And I think we think that they're going to think that's weird, that we're telling people that we're investors rather than agents. So I think it's just one of the things we need to do a better job of. And then on 207, market for sellers, just talking about like different ways, the business cards and direct mail and internet leads. And obviously things that aren't on there that I wrote down for me was some of the Facebook groups, as well as Facebook ads, LinkedIn. Again, the Keller Williams, Green Hills, like I think there's a handful of pages that we're probably all in our local area that would be very good. And then like postcards as you're building your list, postcards monthly or quarterly. And then maybe you do one or two a year of the postcards that are like through Clipper magazine type thing, where it's like you're doing 10,000 or 25,000 and it's just a really super strong call to action.
Right.
Like that might be in January, you might do it. And again, in like October or August or something like that, where it's a really strong call to action specifically for people. They're like almost an iBuyer type thing. Like
you could also go,
hey, I've got cash. We can close in 72 hours.
right. And you could also go get lists from the tax department at multiple towns and do that same thing to mail to those people that are behind and have tax liens and stuff like that. I think that would be huge.
Would you guys fold these same messages and call to actions inside of your real estate business marketing touches?
No, I wouldn't. I would do it separate because I think it's a separate business within your bigger business. So I don't know that I would do it. I think you can let your past clients and everybody know, but I just think that it should be a separate division of your business, but under the umbrella. And it might be a different separate company name, but it's
LLC.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like
she's talking more from a company type name. She's saying, would you send this, or at least I understood that you send the postcard out saying that to your past clients, like, hey, I'm an investor.
Well, yeah, I just was saying, would you have the same message you're using for the investment business? Could you take one of those touches and put it inside of your?
Yeah, I think you could.
Yeah. I mean, why I just thought of this is I made a video because honestly, I did run into some not past clients. I ran into some friends who happen to be flippers and investors, and they're of course looking for stuff, looking for deals. So I made a video that was generic, and I made this video like a few months back, and it just now got to be pushed out to our database, and it was very fitting because the whole message was, hey, we're running into people all the time and we're looking to invest in real estate. If you have a house that needs a little bit more work than just some lipstick and, fixing it up simple, call us, reach out to us. We have people in our network. So I guess that can be your message. And then the ones that come in, if you happen to be the buyer for them, then that just happens to be the case.
Well, here's the thing. It's just like when the people go out and they go bid on a property and they're buying it 65 cents on the dollar to buy it as a flip, right? Mm-hmm. So they'll go out, offer 65 cents on the dollar. Sometimes the sellers take it, other times they list it, right? You can go out with that same option, almost like an iBuyer option. And if they don't want to do that, you can also be their agent to sell the home too. Or you could be their buyer. But the
That's
thing
what I
is,
was just saying. Like,
today is good for today only. Because if I leave this door, then my offer is going to change. Because if you come back and tell me you accept it tomorrow, I know I'm the highest offer. My offer is going to go down.
so that was my whole point of that, is like the whole idea of this investment division. Did you just mic drop? Like, seriously? Okay. So the whole point of this investment division is it actually funnels multiple parts of your business. So you've got potential listing opportunities if you do it right, because they don't want to end up going that route.
Right.
They want to be more traditional. Or if they're in a situation, you have a credit line at the bank and you can close in 3 days, or you can do a traditional 30-day close, depending on the type. But it could also be flips. It could also be, buy and holds. It could be assignment contracts. There's lots of different revenue streams within this that can funnel different pieces of the business. So like when I flip a property.
Means that like a wholesale, right?
What's that?
An assignment contract means like a wholesale, just in case.
Yeah, let's say you couldn't make enough money on flipping it yourself, but you have it under contract for $140,000, and you could assign it to somebody for $150,000, and you take the $10,000 spread.
So it sounds like we need
do that 10 times a year, and you're making an extra 6 figures.
we need a class on that.
Okay.
We need a GPS on all of this. Like, okay, investment division, and then a 135.
We should make that together.
Yeah.
Okay, so can I do a page 210 real quick? And I've got like 3 or 4 pages.
Yeah.
And I'll let y'all do this thing.
No,
So I highlighted a bunch of stuff on page 210 because I thought there was some really good stuff. So in page 208 and 209, we're kind of talking about prospecting stops when you do, which obviously is very important, but marketing lives on and on if you do it correctly. So skipping over to 210, the rule of thumb for marketing is that you should always send your message about being a solution to other people's problems, massive targeted mailings to subdivisions, neighborhoods, real estate journals, newspapers, flyers, whatever, put up signs, billboards. It's just like the ugly yellow house thing. He ended up franchising that company, or we buy ugly houses, whatever it is. But I highlighted and wrote next to on page 210, the last paragraph, remember to keep the message straightforward and simple. So you buy properties, you pay cash, and you close quickly. Like those are the 3 things when you're coming up with a call to action. They need to know that you buy properties, you can pay cash, and you can close quickly. The problem is if you can't do those 3 things and you say you can. I had a client actually text me last night, and he started out as a traditional client, and he's become an investor, and he's started buying 3 or 4 properties a year. He sent me a screenshot of a postcard that was sent to him and text messages. And this was like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. The guy spent the time and money to send out a postcard that looked more like a personal handwritten note, and found his number and found sent him multiple text messages and hasn't responded. So like the guy went through the whole motion of doing all of it and said, we can pay a fair market value. We can do all these things. And he's never even responded to him. And my client was like, what a waste of time and marketing dollars. Like, what an idiot. Mm-hmm. So don't put that out if you can't make it happen.
Or if you haven't hired the right leverage. That's probably
what's that?
He probably hasn't hired the right leverage that put that out for him. That's not responding.
I would actually say maybe that's partially true. I think the bigger thing is he probably paid money to some stupid infomercial and loved the idea of it, and then was like, oh shit, people are responding and I don't have any money and I haven't set anything up, and he can't actually buy it.
You know why? Because he didn't read this book first. That's why.
He needs to call me. I'll help him figure it out. Page 211, just kind of talking about the difference between, separate suspects from prospects and qualifying them, and obviously focusing on the actual prospects rather than the suspects, but you have to go through all those suspects to get to the prospects. So I think a lot of this is stuff we do in our everyday business. I highlighted so much of this last 10 pages, kind of the 5 laws of lead generation, and millionaire real estate investors are always refining their criteria. So, and the reason I didn't give you a good answer, Jess, earlier on what my criteria is because it's changed over time. And I think as I do this more, I look back at some of my previous investments and go, wow, they were actually pretty good, but they're not necessarily what I'd buy today because I don't even care about duplexes and triplexes and quadplexes anymore, even though I'd still buy them. They've got to be that much better of a deal because now that I've bought 30 unit apartment complexes and 22 unit apartment complexes and 17 units, like that is so much more attractive to me than buying a duplex.
Just so you know, that actually makes me want to throw up a little bit thinking about that.
The first one I did was a 22 unit, and I actually bought that one with a business partner, and we did 50-50, and I brought it to him to buy. So he had just sold his company for $50+ million, and I was like, hey man, you want to buy this? And I was like, I think it's a really good deal. It's off market. And he called me back and was like, yeah, you want to partner on it? And I was like,
Yeah.
Just a little bit. I was like, but it ended up being amazing and it worked out. And so it was awesome.
That was actually that's actually from the book. He talks about the gatekeepers. So because his mother-in-law was the one that connected some people, she got pulled into a deal. It's made her over $500,000.
Yeah.
Josh, I want to ask you a question. The guy with the really bad follow-up, did you get that phone number and call him and say that you need to connect?
I have not yet. Hold on a second.
Okay, he's an Amazon delivery. You're fine.
Yeah. Another thought I had, Jess, that
got delivered to me. Sorry.
Yeah. Said it.
Leverage. 217. Have checklists for everything that you do.
Yeah.
I love it because that's what I do in my business, and I feel like if you do it more than once, this investment thing it's a little bit scary, but it's also all about your systems and processes, like turning on and off your Facebook ads, knowing that your postcards are scheduled to go out monthly or weekly or quarterly or whatever it is. Like all of it's just a system and a process and a checklist to make sure it's being done. So I don't think that's any different than, and it kind of goes through the 5 laws. And one of the things I highlighted was the key difference between the top performers and the rest lies in their approach to lead generation. And that's the exact same in any business. And I think he actually mentioned that in a different part of this section that we were reading was the difference between a good business and a big business is just lead generation.
Mm-hmm.
And being organized is about tracking and sourcing the leads. So like you could have the best database in the world, and if you don't know how to talk to it, and if you don't know how to like organize all the information where you can go in one day a week and just call just call like homeowners that are actual nurturers or leads, then you're never going to do it at a high level.
I thought on page 216 that it's a numbers game. The quality is in the quantity.
Yeah.
For every 30 properties they found that met their basic criteria and were worth investigating, the suspects, about 10 warranted serious investigation, the prospects. Of those 10, only about 3 were worth making an offer on. And because their terms were as strict as their criteria, only 1 of those offers turned into a done deal. They call it the 30-10-3-1 lead generation ratio.
I actually think even though this book is older, I don't think that these numbers have there's definitely more sources and ways to get this stuff now, but I actually think the numbers are probably if and when they update this book, I think you'll see that the numbers are probably still in a different section that I was reading. He said, for every 100 people, you're probably going to get about 2 or 3, at least good conversations to potential deals. And hopefully you buy 1 out of those 3. And I think that those numbers probably aren't going to ever change. Right. I think they're probably pretty accurate numbers. So the last thing I highlighted on 219 was the flow of your lead generation. Just kind of talking about how do millionaires make money. It's pretty simple. They make their money going in. So the acquisition model and buying right, they virtually guarantee the success of their investments. Your investments will make you money. So you always make your money on the front end.
Mm-hmm. Talk about what that means so people understand, because sometimes people
meaning that you have to, the terms and the criteria and everything has to be right. So like speculators are the people that look at going, I'll buy fair market and the appreciation of the market over time will take care of me. And that's a horrible way to invest. If that happens on your primary residence and you enjoy living there, good for you. But if you're buying purely from an investment perspective, you have to buy it. You know, you've got to look at it like this. I always look at my traditional business like I'm coming from contribution and I'm helping somebody. You have to look at your investments the same way. As they need to sell it and I'm looking to buy it, and selling it for them does something for them. So a really awesome example of that was page, oh gosh, where was it? 209. It talked about the millionaire is the second, it's the first full paragraph. They're talking about Barbara Mattson shared a story that of a guy who she had never met, and he had talked to like three or four realtors that couldn't help him. And she ultimately helped him buy these properties that had to, you know, he had to
get out.
He had to sell immediately, and she made like $85,000. And she just turned around and gave him 15 grand. He didn't even ask for it and didn't need it. Like, it saved his credit, and he got 15 grand, and she made, you know, $70,000 after giving him 15 grand. It was like a win-win situation. So anyway, making your money going in means you just have to buy it right. You can't pay market value, and there's got to be something good about it. Or it could also be not necessarily the price or terms. It could be that you could get it rezoned and do something really good with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it can mean different things. That was my whole section. I'm done.
You're not done.
I saw on the following pages were, you know, the advice I give to my students is there's a million ways to make $1 million in this business. Start by picking one, learn one way to buy, and get good at it. Only then learn a second way, and then a third. It's just like focusing on your one thing. Pick your one thing you want to focus on, get good at it. Don't veer from your criteria, just like you said, Josh. And then the other one that I loved was on the next page at 221. And it was buying and selling makes you rich. Buying and holding makes you wealthy. We know lots of people who make over $1 million a year buying and selling. But while having a lot of income means you're rich, it doesn't mean you're wealthy. You won't be really wealthy until you buy and hold and pay them off and let them appreciate. Pay them off. That's all I keep hearing is pay them off. Sorry. I pick up what I want to hear.
Yeah.
So I thought those were, you know, really great things to be reminding.
That actually, you know, I agree with that overall, but my point earlier, Jess, was until you have enough money to do that, you just keep using each one of your deals that has enough equity in it. Or you can pay one off, but then you got to go eventually get a loan on it if you want more cash to go and buy more. Or you have to wait and potentially miss deals to get your cash reserve back up to go put another down payment.
The properties that I own, and on all the properties I own, I mean, on my personal residence, I own less than half, and on my other properties, I have very little that I owe on them. So I think that's why I'm in that mindset, because I know I could easily get an equity line on them should I need to buy.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is if you had a full system around the idea of building out the investment division of the Star Realty Group.
Yeah.
And you had somebody that could help you implement that, whether they were getting profit share or they had equity in the deals, whatever. I mean, that's what Gary did with Keller Capital, by the way. But my point is, if you had 20 leads a month coming in that you could just look at 20 deals and decide which two are the best, then you'd eventually have to refinance a couple of those deals to be able to continue to buy more deals. So you've paid down a good bit on your current properties, and that's awesome. But if you don't have cash flow sitting around for more properties, like what happens if before the end of the year there's 4 opportunities for you? You're gonna turn down 3 of them, or are you gonna figure out the other ones?
You're right. I see your point now.
There's no right or wrong. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to get you to think bigger on the idea of like, if the numbers make sense and you can make it work, then do it.
Yeah.
You can. It's okay to have, like, if you had 20% equity in one of your properties right now and you went up to 50%, you'd still be cash flowing the shit out. Yeah, I said shit. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, but you're your audio also kind of goes in and out when you said it,
Okay.
so it kind of spread out to like shit.
I'm like, shit, I'm hungry.
All right, so let's wrap this up. I wrote down an action item for myself. So it is to any rental sign that I see, I'm going to call on it. I'm going to ask about the property. I'm going to see how they came up with that rental rate and just be learning more about. In Tulsa, we don't have a big rental market. It's like an MLS. Like as real estate agents, we don't deal with rental properties. So I'm not.
That here, there's a lot of agents that actually, this is a big miss, I think here. A lot of agents in Connecticut don't want to do rentals because they're like, it's not enough money. And our rentals, like they're $1,200 to $4,000. And I said, you know what? I have always told my team, take the rentals because the rental you can convert many times into a buyer. At a $1,200 a month payment, you can easily afford a house. If the credit is close, you can even do 100% financing loans. So take that renter, and if you treat them right, because nobody else does, they'll be a buyer within a year. And if you treat them right, they tell everybody they know. So we do a decent amount of rentals. And on top of that, the Connecticut market actually has a lot of opportunity for rentals because of the baby boomers that don't want to get out of the business world yet, but they want to sell their homes because they see there'll be a lot of other homes coming on the market. They can afford the higher rents. So there's a big opportunity for rentals here.
Yeah, we just don't have a database that's shared. Really.
Neither do most cities. Like we have a rental tab on ours, but it's not very. There's no one place where you can aggregate all of those together. So
that's my point.
Yeah, but I can give you the names of several like phone numbers of all these rentals in Nashville, and you can call those too if you'd like. And then you can just email me the update.
The results. I'll just put it in a spreadsheet for you and say, buy this one, buy this one.
Like a win-win. Yeah. Great.
He'll pay you a finder's fee.
$500.
Bring me in on the deal. No, he won't.
No. You know.
So really, I mean, the last section was really from what I'm seeing. It was buying it right. So you either buy it and you sell it, and that makes you cash right away, or you buy and you hold it, and that's long term.
So what are we reading to next time?
We'll talk about that. I don't know. It's on the next event thingy. So thank you guys for sharing your knowledge. Any final parting words for today?
I'd say after each one of these things, whoever watches these, you need to just pick one item of action and get into it, whether it's opening a new bank account, putting your profit share into that to be your.
I love that one. That's my other one.
Yeah, I wrote down to create a LLC called Star Capital, and get somebody on the team to start doing that for me. So that's number one, since I did the bank account and I met with the finance guy and had my balance sheet. So, and write my offer on the dang property.
With getting a little bit of financing as well.
Yes.
Josh, I know you have a final word.
I don't. Just go find a property that makes sense and buy it.
There you go.
Realtors, we have like so many opportunities.
I think seasonally too, like we know that toward the end of a year, maybe our businesses, we don't slow down our activities of lead generating. Maybe there aren't as many sales. And so this is a great time for us to be thinking this way as well, to be bringing in more opportunities for our own.
I just think we were so busy trying to get a commission check. When you look at 3% and you look at like how much money, cash on cash, and what you're able to depreciate, I just think 3% is like, it's nothing when you think about what you can make if you buy it right. If you're buying it right and you're buying it even 10% below market value and you're able to put 20% down, and when you look at what you can sell it for in the future, and there was an example in one of those pages where the guy put $4,000 down, he was losing, $70 a month or $40 a month for like 3 years, but he quadrupled his initial investment. Not bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take that deal.
Do it.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. It's good seeing you.
All right. Bye.
Have a
fabulous day.
Bye. See you later.